What's going on, everybody? Louie T here. You know what that means. We are back with another crypto market update. Today, we are covering the Bitcoin miners. I got three of them I want to show you guys today and why I think this sector is gearing up for a massive bull run. Before we get into it, though, I need you to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications if you haven't already, and check out the links down below. BB Discord and BB Trader X, our brand new flagship product we just launched just about 2 weeks ago. Fully automated trading strategies, follow proven ones, vibe code your own, no subscription fees, all executed on Hyperliquid. Check that out down below. And let's dive into it, shall we? So before we get into the individual names here, I kind of want to give an example, not only why I think the Bitcoin miners are gearing up for a massive run, which is pretty much more or less a TA and technical standpoint here. I want to kind of compare them to Bitcoin as well, because if you've been following along in my videos, you guys know I think we are probably exiting the normal 4-year cycles, that we're used to seeing in Bitcoin. And I think what we've witnessed, this 50% correction off the recent high, has been somewhat of a mid-cycle correction, right? So I want to compare to when the miners really start to run in comparison to where Bitcoin has been during its bull run when that happens. So I chose to use Riot. Riot is probably the most OG Bitcoin miner that's been around the longest. Not only has it been the strongest recently, but it just trades super clean, right? Compared to all the miners, I think Riot trades the cleanest, in my opinion. So I tried to make a composite. It wasn't coming out the right way. So just chose Riot here. And I want to kind of mark out when these miners start pumping, right? Where are we in relation to Bitcoin? So I got Bitcoin down below. I got Riot above. We're going to start marking out when Riot, or, in this case, we're using Riot as an example for, the miner sector. Where are we when the miners really start to move? So this go around was 2017, right? So you see Riot starts to move off the lows, starts to accelerate, pauses, big run, right? When these miners run, guys, they run hard, right? They run hard. So kind of why I'm doing this video. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, but we'll get to that later. So miners start popping off, big blow off move. Bitcoin pretty much coming out of its mid-cycle correction, or the last correction before its blow off 2017 bull run high at 20K that I'm sure you've heard about in the past. Let's zoom in a little more here so we could see that, right? Bitcoin was climbing. Correction. Bitcoin was climbing. Bigger correction. I know it's small, but I think this was like a 30+% correction, if I'm not mistaken. So this was a 41, almost 42% correction out of Bitcoin in a bull run. Right? I think Bitcoin we just saw 55% pullback, but Bitcoin miners started leading and pushing higher, coming out of this 40% correction for Bitcoin. And then Riot, or the Bitcoin miners, go on a monster bull run. I think this ultimately ended up being a almost 1,500% move for Riot. Bitcoin goes for its big blow off move to all-time highs in 2017, hitting 20K, a big historic moment. And all of that really occurs in just about 3 months, right? So you see a big correction out of Bitcoin, or a mid-cycle correction. Miners coming out of that which the miners weren't moving at all during, this multi-month climb for Bitcoin. Bitcoin corrects, mid-cycle correction. Sorry, Bitcoin's in here. Mid-cycle correction, 40% correction. Miners start to lead, start pushing higher. Bitcoin starts to recover, and they both go for blow off tops at the same time, right? So there's example one, right, in the 2017 bull run. Let's look at 2021 bull run, right? We're going to have to make this a little smaller here so we could fit it. All right. So I would say the miners kind of started moving here, right? And I'm going to say, as we're looking at this, I would think 2021 is probably the biggest outlier out of these three examples we're going to look at, due to the fact that we had COVID and all that crazy money printing, right? So a little different, and I'm noticing there's a lot of more similarities to 2017 and present day versus now and 2021's bull run. But we're going to look at it anyways, right? So Riot starts pushing off the lows, finally starts accelerating after a massive, multi-year reaccumulation. And Bitcoin was already climbing well off its lows, right? Bitcoin trading at like 15, 16K, was at a low of 3. So Bitcoin had already gone from $3,000, where it marked the low, to about $16,000, right? So almost, what was that? Like almost a little more than a 5x off the lows before Riot and the miners started pumping. The miners really start to get going, start accelerating off the lows, and you see the speed pick up, right, in the Bitcoin bull run here. And miners make a top almost at the exact first all-time high blow off top for Bitcoin. This cycle, we had a double top again. This cycle was a lot different, very wonky, very weird. But Bitcoin miners start to go. Bitcoin and the miners blow off top at almost around the same time. And honestly, the miners actually lead a little bit. But again, going from, a bear market low to, putting in an almost 3,000% move, right, in just November of 2020, making a top of February of 2021. In just 3 to 4 months, right, you're seeing that multi-1,000% move to the upside in a miner like Riot, while Bitcoin as well accelerates and makes its high. So again, massive opportunity here, right? Massive opportunity here if you can catch a miner coming out of a bear market accumulation, right? So last but not least, let's look at present day real quick. Obviously, we don't have full data yet, right? Because in my opinion, Bitcoin's bull run is not complete just yet, but we will see. Maybe I'm wrong, and we are simply in another 4-year cycle. And the miners just happen to not run this go around. But I find that a little hard to believe. This go around, right? Miners, or Riot specifically, is just now, right, starting to press and leave its bear market accumulation, right? And this has been its longest in history, right? Those were the ones we looked at the past were never this long. This is almost going on 4 years. Usually there's about a year and a half, 2 years. So this is almost double the time of accumulation on this stock or on these miners, because a lot of miners look exactly like this or similar, but and Bitcoin is now, well off its low, right? With the low of 15,000, sitting at around 75,000 today. Honestly, quite interestingly enough, is up around close to 5x. The same kind of price appreciation and difference in 2021 when Riot started running then. So, and Bitcoin is coming off of a 50 some odd percent correction. So you're seeing a similarity in, you know, Bitcoin coming off a big correction like we saw in 2017. Bitcoin was coming off a 42% correction, turned around, went on for a massive bull run, blow off top in just a few months as the miners led the way out of the mid-cycle correction and blew off top with Bitcoin. So right now, looking at this chart, it looks like Riot is just now starting a move like this, right? And like this. And again, these moves were both 1,000+% gains, right? So there are some similarities still occurring here. This has been very different than we're used to seeing, but there are still some similarities. So what do we take from this? Well, miners like to run at the tail end of a Bitcoin bull run, but there's still tons of gas in the tank left for Bitcoin as the miners start to run, right? And a lot of the time it comes after a big mid-cycle correction, right? We saw in 2017, and we're seeing that now. So there's just some context for when the miners like to run, and just another data point, right? That's hinting at that we may not be done yet in this Bitcoin bull run, right? And I've touched on plenty more in previous videos. So let's dive into the individual charts here, run through them. I'll give some TA, and we'll wrap it up for today, guys. All right, so we were just looking at this chart, but we're going to look at it a little more closely here and add some TA and stuff like that to it. So this is Riot chart, obviously a little more zoomed in. Again, we previously just discussed that this looks ready to finally exit this multi-year reaccumulation, which is what I think it is, right? And as I've said before, guys, when these Bitcoin miners run and they leave these multi-year reaccumulations, they run hard and for a short period of time, right? If you didn't get on board before this started rocket shipping, it was very hard to get a good entry, right? Unless you just chased it, right? This may be one of those instances where it was worth chasing, not how I like to play though. I like to be positioned before a big blow off top, right? This chart to me is very constructive. Again, I think Riot's one of the cleanest traded ticker out of the Bitcoin miners that I watch personally. And it's also been locally the strongest, right? Leading the way. So, what I'm looking at here is a massive, multi-year falling wedge into demand. You broke that wedge. You banged your head on overhead resistance, big supply level. This was your previous bull run 2021 kind of all-time high topping formation, right? So big resistance level. Rejected on a first attempt, totally normal. Being the first time you tested it since returning after 3 years later, right? It's since rejected. It's spent pretty much the last 2 or 3 quarters reaccumulating. But we also got a massive higher low structure here and a beautiful base, right? So we made a pivot point low. We broke out of our wedge, target hit, rejected at overhead supply, pulled back. This is what you call a bullish throwback, right? You broke out of this structure, you're pulling back, you're retesting it as support, right? Flipping resistance into support. And then you get the real breakout, right? This is kind of textbook TA 101. Breakout, retest, real breakout, right? And this, couple months of price action is where everyone messes up, right? Because they chase the breakout move. They weren't positioned early, right? They trace the breakout move. They get chopped up in this, and then they miss the real breakout, right? So right now, Riot coming up for a second test on this overhead supply. Good news is this is already tested it once. The more this gets tested, the more likely this resistance break, right? Like just imagine someone kicking a door, right? The more times they keep kicking, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker until it finally breaks, right, and gets blown in. So really liking the look of Riot here. This looks explosive. Again, this massive multi-month higher low base it put in really looks like a launch pad to me. You know, this can take a few more attempts to break this resistance, but in my opinion, this looks ready to go very soon here, guys. And once price breaks back above, let's say $26, $27, you're leaving this trading range, which we've been in for 4 years, and now you're entering a brand new trading range, or even from this resistance level all the way back to all-time high. So you're leaving this range and entering a massive new trading range with a lot less market structure and overhead supply, where price, in theory, should start accelerating and moving faster and stronger, like we've seen in the previous bull runs, right? Like we saw here. You break previous resistance. You break back above previous resistance, you really start to see the stock fly. So Riot, although out of the three I'm showing you today, probably the highest off of the lows thus far. But again, strength is strength, right? You don't want to fade strength. And again, if you see this break 26, you have a clean long setup, pretty much from 26 up into 47, $48 at a minimum, in my opinion. So that is Riot looking really strong. So be on lookout for that overhead resistance to get broken. Next on the list is CLSK. This is probably the second strongest one out of the three I'm watching personally. And this also looks really constructive here, guys. Very clean price action. The price action we've been putting in here since 2022, to me, resembles just one massive base, right? Or one massive ascending triangle brick base. You call this in technical analysis and classical charting, where you have a flat overhead resistance, which is super clear. You have rising demand, right? Price respecting this rising trend line over and over and over again. And ultimately, this acts like a pressure cooker, where on the third or fourth attempt at the structure high, you get your breakout, right? So right now, this is breaking back above a key level, right? I would call this the mid-range of this multi-year range, right? CLSK actually had a strong day today. It was up over 9%. So breaking above this level and acceptance above here puts structure highs on the table, right? So right now trading around $14, puts $22 on the table, which is still a nice move from where you're at now, like about a 50% move. So that would be your target one from these levels. But if and when it does that, price is just returning to its structure highs, where this is just a bottoming formation, in my opinion, right? If it's returning here for a third time, right? 1, 2, for a third tap, right? Just like we talked about kicking that door. This resistance is going to give out, and this is going to break out, right? Which would give it a target of around $42, $43. And for me, that's a little conservative. I think this can go much higher, right? When you zoom out, we've made higher highs on this chart before, right? But a solid measured move target for CLSK, would be this 2021 bull run all-time high, right? So you got a pretty clean setup here, where if we could see the week close above this mid-range, which it looks like it's going to now. We've got a couple days left in the week, but if CLSK can close above 1350 and maintain and reclaim this, you got a long setup. You could set your TP, maybe below the last 2 weeks low. Your target one would be structure highs at around $22. Expect resistance there, but again, now that this has been tested once, twice, third go around, you're probably going to not see as much resistance, and you're going to break this resistance, right? So your T1 would be structured highs. And then on the breakout, your T2 would be your all 2021 bull run all-time high. And that's a pretty sizable trade there, right? Good risk reward, and almost a 3x move, right, from where we are today. So still a ton of opportunity right now, because I think this is still in its bottoming formation, right? But it's starting to move, right? You're starting to see that acceleration. So that is CLSK. Last but not least, we have Mara, probably the weakest out of the three, right? But you could look at that as, oh, I don't want to play it because it's been weak, or okay, here's a great way to get on board earlier, you know, before one of these miners really starts moving, right? So you saw Riot was like more so trading up here, right? You saw CLSK more or less kind of trading in this area. Mara's down here, right? So this could be a great laggard play, and an opportunity to get in on a miner before it start its climb like the other two have started, right? So again, very similar to what Riot did, just probably looks like lagging behind. Multi-year falling wedge into your kind of lower uh, bear market base, creating a pivot point low at the wedge extreme, and now pushing back inside the wedge. Right now we're at a key level, right? And this is kind of why I really wanted to do this video today, because this isn't going to be down here much longer, in my opinion. You're breaking a local breakout, a local structure breakout. You're bouncing off a multi-year wedge lower extreme. Your first target is going to be your wedge highs, right? And these local highs here. So, right now at 1244, that would be like a $21, $22 target. So you're looking at almost close to a double just to your structure highs, where again, that is just your your reversal pattern, right? If this is coming up here, if it holds here, right? And this little bottoming bounce here remains a bottoming bounce, and you're returning back to your wedge high for the third or fourth time, this is going to break, right? This is going to give you your falling wedge breakout, where again, your next target is going to be your major overhead supply resistance. And then we see where it goes from there. That'd probably be a big resistance level. We saw Riot reject pretty hard at a similar resistance. But I mean, if all the miners are flying at once, I could see it blow right through, right? Or maybe just some minor resistance. But ultimately, you're looking at an opportunity here with the Bitcoin miner play that's coming off the pretty much absolute lows of its 4-year bear market reaccumulation. First target, almost a double from here. Second target, 2.5x. And if you're breaking back inside, right, very similar to Mara, if you're to Riot, back inside your 2021 bull market price action range as you exit your 4-year bear market range, you're entering a large trading range that will lead to price acceleration. So that's Mara, guys. Again, one of the weaker ones, but again, you can look at it as weakness, or you can look at it as a laggard play. How I'm playing it is I'm in all three, right? I'm in all three. Obviously, I'm in all of these three from lower where they are now, right? I'm in Mara from down here. I'm in Riot from a lot lower. I'm in CLSK from where it is a lot lower. I did videos on these. Go back and watch, if you've been following along. But still a lot of value here, in my opinion. And again, these miners look to be entering a bull phase, right? And exiting a bear phase, where that's not something you see if the Bitcoin bull market is over. If anything, the Bitcoin bull market is just getting started, or just starting to heat up in a big way, right? So this is interesting data, right? We're kind of in uncharted territory here. But this sector, regardless, if we just look at this from a TA perspective, throw out the Bitcoin fundamentals and the cycles and all that, these miners are exiting or looking to exit a 4-year bear phase that doesn't end with a little tiny breakout like this. A 4-year reaccumulation phase ends in a almost multiple months, almost a year, if not longer, phase of a bull run with, accelerating prices, right? Because, you have to look at this as a pressure cooker and a reaccumulation. And the bigger the base, the higher into space. And a lot of these miners have massive bases. So a lot of opportunity here, guys. There's a ton of other Bitcoin miners out there as well. Check those out. These are just the three I'm following. But yeah, tons of opportunity in this sector, guys. And I think we're on the precipice of a big bull run. We'll see, right? We'll see if I'm right or wrong. I'm positioned for being right and for this to play out. But obviously, if things change, I will change and keep you guys updated on that. But that's it for this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Peace.